All right. Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Good to see you all. Karibuni sana. Welcome to the Afriforex daily analysis this beautiful 21st day of August 2024. Hope everyone is well. Hope you had a good time on the charts yesterday and in everything else that you are doing. John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. We're coming to you live and direct from Nairobi, Kenya, straight out of the 254. So we also do have Mitch here. He is working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will be getting back to you, but I will be also looking at the questions more specifically in the Q&A section. So feel free to ask them. Even as the webinar does end up progressing on, you will definitely end up getting a much favorable response. So we're going to jump straight into it. And of course, we'll start off by looking at the watch list, what we have in comparison to what we did end up having yesterday. And you can see the watch list right there. Quite a big difference in comparison to what we did end up having yesterday. So you can see quite a number of things have shifted sides. So we do have the US dollar and the Canadian dollar being abandoned on the sell side of things, but we'll see how things end up unfolding on that front. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. And of course, we'll start off by looking at the currency pairs that we did have yesterday. And unfortunately didn't make it to our watch list this morning. See what happened, see what you can end up learning from them. So the first one, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out in the morning. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative, somewhere within here. And you can see in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. I did point out that you shouldn't really be looking for your buying opportunities when the market is so close within that region. At least wait and see if you could get the market coming back in within here. It did, but you can see that the buyers were really not interested and they really struggled to push the market to the upside of this region right here. And unfortunately, the buyers couldn't really end up lifting to the upside. Of course, we wanted to see higher highs and higher lows, and you can see that the market broke to the downside and the market continued to rally down. But also something maybe to do with the strength, that possibly started coming on the Swiss franc pairs yesterday. So I think that did end up interfering with that trade right there. And it's definitely something that you're also going to see, even as we end up looking at the rest of the Swiss franc pairs. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities on this one. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within here. The buyers had started to lift, but I did point out that at least try and see if we could get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. But you can see that when the market came in within this region, there was no sign, of any big buyer coming in. You can't even see that during the US session, the market just couldn't lift off this region to the upside. And unfortunately, the market continued to rally down. Also, like I pointed out, maybe something, and possibly I think a big and significant effect due to the Swiss franc strength that did end up starting to show up yesterday. So unfortunately for us on that one, couldn't really get some proper buying opportunities on it. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities as well. Price was high up within this region yesterday. Did point out that we did need to see some sort of maybe an attempt of the market to come in lower. Then maybe the buyers did actually end up showing up within this region quite aggressively and the market held to the upside. Then we would have possibly looked for the buyers. And you can see that if you compare how the sellers came down versus how the buyers came up, you can definitely see that the sellers were stronger. And this was quite a weak breach. Even if the market seemed like it was holding within this region to the upside, this one wasn't really good. And I mean, we always talk about, when the market just breaks and holds above an SNR, it's never really a good sign. We want the market to really break to the upside aggressively. Maybe when the market pulls back in within this region, those type of trades end up being much better. So unfortunately, this one wasn't really good. You can see that during the US session, when from around 4:30, price was within a seller's region, the market did move to the downside. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the buyers lifting of that region right there to the upside. So unfortunately, there wasn't much of a trade for us on the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So the next one, this is the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. For this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. And you can see that the market did end up coming to the downside. Remember, we talked about hopefully the market comes into the downside and maybe we do get a hold within this region. Then we could have looked for the sells. And, in as much as we could have targeted all the way down to within this region right here, you definitely did need to do some money management, within these two areas here. You can see that the market came down, sellers tapped within this region, then they ran out of steam. You can see that today during the Asian session, the market has gone all the way back up. It's more or less back in within the same region where it was yesterday at a time like this. So definitely for this one selling opportunity there, but very choppy move coming down. It was quite a struggle coming down. So it seems that the Swiss franc and the Japanese yen were really fighting. On that one, you could find that the fight could continue today. So we don't really want to be in the way of that chaos. So moving on into some euros that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So this is the euro against the Australian dollar. Yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could get some sells. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out: aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. And the market had just started to come to the downside. They did point out that you should not really be looking for yourselves, especially when the market is down within this region right here. And you can see that the buyers did retaliate off this region quite a number of times and even pushed the market all the way back in within this region right here. So unfortunately for us today, this is not a currency pair that we'll be watching out for. Yesterday, we were looking for the sells, but the sells were quite tricky. You can't see that the market is ranging. So you could find that maybe we could continue with that range moving into today, especially considering the fact that the euro and the Great British Pound, the euro and the Australian dollar are on the same side. So you could find that there could be a fight that could be going on with that one. So the next one, this is the euro against the Great British Pound. For this one, we're watching out for sells yesterday. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within here. It did come in aggressively. I did point out that if we do get a hold within here, maybe you could look for your sells coming down. Unfortunately, the sells couldn't come in all the way till the bottom, somewhere within this region. Seems like there was some sort of an SNR within this area. You can really see the struggle and the fight that was really going on within this particular region right here. And the market did turn to the upside. So some sort of a minor SNR was somewhere within this region right here. And we always point out, if you end up getting, in as much as you're targeting somewhere here and you get the market holding within minus SNR, it's never a bad idea to actually end up managing your trade. So for this one, the market turned off there. Fortunately, couldn't come in all the way till the bottom, where we would have loved to see it. But nonetheless, it was still a trading opportunity. So the next one, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, trying to see whether we could get sells. You can clearly see the three regions that I had mapped out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. We did possibly want to see the market maybe come back in within this region to look for the sells. You can see that the market did continue to rally down lower at around 3. This was during the US session open. The market did bounce off this region to the upside. Definitely some sort of support region somewhere within that area there. And the market came back in within here. And you can see that the sellers really struggled to push the market to the downside of that region there. And you can see that today the market has started to go up. So definitely a big fight is going on, between the euro and the New Zealand dollar. So fortunately, not really a currency pair that we'll be watching out to see whether we can get some trading opportunities today. And last but not least, we do have the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, trying to see whether we could get sells, you can clearly see the three regions that I had mapped out, and also an illustration of what to expect. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. So I was expecting maybe the price was going to come down. Maybe we did end up maybe even just coming back in within this area right here. Could have possibly looked for the sells to come down, but you can see that the sellers just came in and they continued to push the market down lower. This was from the Frankfurt market open from around 9. Price came down. Can't see that the market was holding within here. Let's even just see where the market was at around 3. So you can see that the market was within some sort of a buyer's region. So unfortunately, the buyers just couldn't push the market to the upside, and you can see that the market did continue to rally down. So unless you got some sells higher up, somehow maybe during the Frankfurt session, unfortunately, can't see that getting other sells as the day did actually end up progressing on was a bit difficult and a bit tricky. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs that we do have for review. That unfortunately didn't make it to our watch list this morning. So we can move on and look at some two screenshots that we did end up getting from Alan and Christine. Shout out to you guys. So we'll start off with this one from Alan. So this is on the euro against the Great British Pound. So I can see you got a selling opportunity on this one. And I can see that you're targeting right within this area here, and your stop loss is all the way high up within that area. So for this one, of course, we're really happy to see what you're doing on the charts, and we're happy to help. In terms of how you went about it on this trade, not really the best, because if you look at what you stand to gain versus what you stand to lose, you're definitely getting the short end of the stick. So in terms of risk to reward, not really the best. And also in terms of where you got the trade, remember we always talk about buy with buyers, sell with sellers. If you generally look at this region right here, in terms of where you put the take profit, it's okay. Because I mean, if you're coming down, you can see that the market has bounced off this region quite a number of times. That's fine in terms of your take profit. But in terms of the entry, if you end up looking at any trade, and of course, this advice doesn't only go out to Alan, it goes out to everyone out there who's watching, even guys on YouTube, whatever, if you end up looking at any particular trade and the risk to reward is not worth taking the trade, then don't take the trade, because if you end up doing that, then you're forcing a trade. There are better opportunities elsewhere. So you can see that in as much as your take profit is there, that's perfect. But your entry, had you gotten the entry higher up, you can clearly see that the sellers have been pushing down off somewhere within these regions right here. Even if you are to look at, let's say, for example, let me see if I can maybe annotate on this one. So even if, let's say, for example, you're looking for selling opportunities within this region right here, this definitely looks like the best area. You can see that the market has tapped off this region right here when it came back in for some sort of a retest, within that area. We had timed the sales higher up, even if you're targeting here. And maybe even if you had your stops at the same area, that trade would have been much better. So don't take any trade unless you're going to be getting maybe like at least a 1:2 minimum. If you're getting anything less than that, especially now when you end up now getting now into 1:0 point something, like it is on this particular scenario right here, then it's not very good, because if you end up getting such type of trades time and time again, you'll not be able to cover your losses. So you can imagine that if this one goes to the upside and you end up incurring a loss on this one, and then you end up taking another trade like this again, how will you be able to cover your losses? And remember that losing is part of trading. Even the best traders in the world do end up losing. It's just a matter of when they win way more than they've lost, and that's how they're able to cover the losses. So we look at losses as the cost of doing business. It's something that you have to pay. Losses are inevitable. You can analyze to the best of your ability, but the markets can still go against you. But you should not really put yourself in situations where you're getting the short end of the stick, like for this one. So even if the market did end up hitting TP on this one, let's say, I mean, if you end up repeating such type of trades, one out of, let's even say 10 or 20 trades, you might end up finding that instead of moving forward, you might be moving back, because you get a trade like this, you win. Maybe even the next trade you win, then the next one you lose. You can see that you'll end up losing way more in terms of your cash, and more hours than you've actually gained. So you'd actually be moving backwards. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Not end up taking any trades that don't give you some proper risk to rewards. And of course, we're talking about 1:2, and always make sure you're buying with buyers and you're selling with sellers. That way, at least you also increase the chances of your trades working out. But of course, happy to see your screenshot here, Alan, and we're definitely looking forward to more of your progress. So we also did get a screenshot from Christine. So this is on the New Zealand dollar against Canadian dollar. So you can see that you got a buying opportunity on this one, which was good. If you got it on the pullback somewhere within here, this was really fantastic. Of course, as the market did continue moving high up in your favor, stop loss already above your point of entry, just hiding behind those buyers who are pushing the market up, which is okay. And of course, happy to see your progress, Christine. So shout out to Christine and Alan. And of course, remember, guys, if you do have, or if you do get any screenshots, feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details should be there on the chat box. We're more than happy to help and to be of service to you guys, and of course to celebrate your wins as well. So for the guys here on Zoom, the contact details should be there on the chat box. For the guys watching us on Zoom, you can find our contact details on our website, but also within the links that are there within the video description, you should be able to find our number, and you can send in your screenshots to us via WhatsApp. So shifting gears into matters today. So you can see the watch list right there. For the guys who come in late, this is what we're going to be watching out for. So we're going to be mixing and matching up the US dollar versus everything on the buy side, and also the Canadian dollar versus everything on the buy side. Then we'll definitely end up finishing off with the indices and the commodities, as we always do. So the first one, this is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. For this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. So the market had just come up within there. I did point out that you didn't quite know what type of reaction you'd have gotten off this region here. And you can see that there was a real fight that was going on within here. But based on how the buyer had stepped out within that region right there, it seems that the sellers did really end up struggling, to retaliate and calm down the buyers. And you can see that the market did break to the upside, sort of a hold to the upside. At least if you did end up looking for buys on this side, you can see that the buyers did continue to rally up, but definitely the market seems to have been held somewhere within this region. There's a major SNR somewhere within this region right here. So just make sure that you do watch out for this particular region right here. Right now, the market is coming back in. Let's hope that we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within this region here. If we can get that, then I think we could possibly end up getting some good buying opportunities within here. I'm definitely targeting the top region right there. But also watch out for this area right here. You could find that, in case the buyers do actually end up needing a much better price, then at least we'll be knowing that this is going to be the last area where we will be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. But remember the red SNR, in case the market breaks that region to the downside, unfortunately, there will be no trade for us unless the market does end up coming back into the upside of that region. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So this is also a kind of pair we had yesterday. Trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was just coming back in within this region right here. And you can see that the market broke to the upside, but I did point out that you did need to wait and see whether you could get a hold to the upside of this region. And you can see that the buyers really held the market above this SNR. After the market broke to the upside on the retest, you can see two attempts to actually come down, which were unsuccessful. And of course, if you did get the buys going up, then this was a really good buy somewhere within this region right here going up. Definitely did need to watch out for, SNR levels higher up that could have possibly come into issues or give you issues. And you can see that the market came up within here, tapped within this region price, and were being held, more or less within that region, even moving into today. So for this one, these are the three areas that I will be watching out to see what happens. Hopefully the market can come back in all the way as close as possible within here. There's definitely a minor SNR within this region right here, but you can see that the market has attempted to go up higher off this region a number of times and it's been unsuccessful. So in my mind, that tells me that more or less, maybe that price is not really that good. So there's a possibility price could still come back in within this region here. So let's keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. Hopefully the sellers can come in slow like they are, which is good, back in within this region here, and we can possibly end up getting some buyers showing up within this area. Then at that point in time, I'll definitely be looking for the buyers to come up, challenging this region right here, and definitely targeting to see whether we could end up going much higher than that. So also watch out for this region at the bottom. There's also a possibility price could come back in there. If it does, then at least we should be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, when I'm looking at the charts at a time like this yesterday, price was just within this area right here. So it was just attempting to break to the upside. You can see that the market broke to the upside, just tapped within this region right here. And after that, continued to rally up higher. So shout out to, I think it was Christine who did actually end up getting the buy on this one, which was really good. And of course, well managed based on what we saw on your screenshot. So shout out to you for that. And you can see that the market did continue to rally up high, but today during the Asian session, definitely the market hit some sort of a resistance area at the top right here. So that means if you do end up getting the buying opportunities today, let's say if you get the buys within here, you'll definitely have to watch out for that region at the top. You can't ignore that area. So if the market comes in there, make sure you manage it. We break to the upside, then we possibly end up getting a pullback. You could possibly end up looking for another conservative entry somewhere higher up within that area there and continue moving up high, as you continue to manage your earlier trade. So make sure that you watch out for that. Also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. In case the buyers do actually need that price somewhere within here, there's a possibility price could come back in within there. If it does, at least we'll be ready for that as well. So make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember the red SNR, that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get some, aggressive buying opportunities. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is also a currency pair we did end up having yesterday. We're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I have pointed out. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. And I did point out that we did want to possibly see the market come down and hold beneath this region for us to look for the sells. The market did quite come back in all the way to within there. Although maybe on the smaller scale of things, if you end up looking at how the market came down, it just tapped within that area, maybe on the 3-minute time frame, which was quite fast. And after that, the market just held just slightly below this region right here. You can see that after that, during the US session, the market continued to rally down, even taking out this region to the downside. But today, the pullback is coming in. So for this one, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get sells. So these are the three areas that we're going to be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So let's see what happens within, especially this region where the market is right now. Can possibly end up getting a sign of the big sellers showing up. Right now, the buyers have come up back in within this region. The market broke this area to the downside. This is some sort of a retest coming in. Although even if the market did end up retesting yesterday, let's see what happens this time around. You could find that maybe the market might end up attempting to spike up just higher, maybe just to tap within that region there. If that does end up happening and we get, a retaliation and a serious retaliation of the sellers coming in within there, and after that we end up getting the market, possibly holding within this particular region right here, then hopefully at that point in time, we could actually end up trying to see whether we could get some sales within there. So this could be a good sell, but it's definitely going to be based on how the market does end up playing out within there. You could find that during the London session, this whole rollover phase might actually end up taking place, within a whole session. Then you could find that maybe at 3-4:30, that's when the buyers would have struggled to come back in within here. And you could find that that's when the market could actually end up coming to the downside. So let's just wait and see what does end up happening on this one. But also remember, in case the buyers do continue to rally up and let's say the sellers have nothing to say about it and we can't see them coming back in, then we'll just have to wait and see whether the market could actually end up coming back in within here. Because even when the market did break to the downside of this region, there wasn't quite a proper retest of this area. So there's still a possibility price could still go back up till within this region right here. So also just make sure that you watch out for that. But of course, the higher it goes, the better for us because it gives us more room to actually end up playing in terms of risk to reward to the downside. So let's just wait and see what happens. But of course, this one, not a bad setup for today. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the US dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. We're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So aggressive all the way down to within this area here. You can see that the market rallied up yesterday quite aggressively. Today during the Asian session, the pullback is happening. Let's see what happens. Maybe you could find that the market might need to come back in within this region and maybe do some sort of a rollover phase within this area right here. Maybe during the London session, and you could find that during the US session, that's when the market will be ready to go, after doing something like that. So let's just wait and see what happens. But definitely, I will be watching to see what happens, especially on the rollover phase within here. Because, the markets don't just shoot up and down. The markets are not crazy. There's always that protocol and that, sequence that the markets do actually follow when they're turning around. So I'll definitely be keen to see what happens within that region there. If we can't get that there, then I'll definitely be watching out for this region because you can't see that the market broke above this region to the upside quite aggressively. We couldn't get a pullback and some sort of a proper retest coming back in within this region here. So there's a possibility, price could actually come back in for some sort of a retest within that area. And if that does end up happening, then at least I will be ready for that. So last but not least, for the USD pairs, we do have the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So we'll be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. So these are the three areas I will be watching out for. Can definitely see that the US dollar is really getting hammered by the Swiss franc. You can see that the market has been coming down for an extended period of time. Let's see if we can get a proper pullback coming in on this one. If the market does end up coming back in within this region right here, and you can see that the market has just bounced off this area, given some sort of a double bottom, for the guys who usually follow chart patterns, and you can see that the market is bouncing off this region to the upside. Let's see if we can get the market hopefully coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. If you can get that, and of course the buyers do end up slowing down within that area, and we see an aggression, the sellers coming in. At that point in time, I will be looking for selling opportunities to come down, definitely manage within this area, but possibly trying to see how much more further, the market could possibly end up going on this one. So also do watch out for the region at the top. And as much as the US dollar doesn't really seem like it has a lot of strength and fighting strength, you need to actually give a proper pullback. But, always keep your options open. You're always much better off being prepared for something and it doesn't happen, rather than something happening and you're not ready for it. So, it's something we always say, you're better off having something and not needing it, rather than needing something and not having it when you need it. So, if the market gets all the way back in within that region, then at least we will be ready for that. So that's pretty much it for the USDs. So right now we're going to move on to the cards, and we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So you can see from around 9:10, then the market came back in within there. After that, just tapped within this region right here, not exactly within the SNR, but remember, like we always point out, it's a region, it's not really a price. And after that, you can see that the market did continue to rally up to the upside, broke above this region and did some sort of a hold, which more or less is still holding within here. But we've slightly moved the levels up higher, because even if we kept the level within here and you actually end up trying to attempt some buying opportunities within here, you could end up finding yourself in some sort of a squeeze, within this region. So it might not really end up being worth it. So this being the major level, we'd rather just have that there. We can generally clear this region to the upside and we get the market pulling back in within here. Then we could possibly try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities there. But there's also this area right here, especially considering the fact that the market could be sort of channeling, going up. So there's a high probability price could come back in within this area. If it does end up coming back in within this area, then I'll definitely be ready for that. So I've even set an alert there. And also this region right here. So in case the market does end up needing a much better price, then we know that there's a possibility price could come back in here. So this level is also quite visible on the bigger time frame. So based on the bigger story of the bigger time frame. So also watch out for that region. But a high probability we could be coming back in maybe somewhere within here, and you could find that the market could lift off this area to the upside. So do watch out for that. Also remember to watch out for the times, like we always point out, 10, 3, and 4:30. You could find some good opportunities within those times. So moving on into the next one. So this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. And in the morning, you can see that when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region. And you can see that the market really struggled, to lift off this region right here during the London session. It was only during the US session that the market actually took off from within this area to the upside, even taking out this region. Actually went all the way till 4-hour level, which was somewhere high up within that region there. And you can see this was a trade setup that I was actually looking out for. Unfortunately, the market just came back in and just missed within that area and completely took off. So 1:5.7 just went just like that as I watched. But I was actually in on the trade initially. I'd seen the buyers come up, but I realized that maybe the market needed a much better price. So I came out of that trade to try and time it a bit lower. But unfortunately, the market just missed. So you can see the first entry right there, somewhere within this region. I realized the market was struggling, so I timed a better entry down within here, but unfortunately I ended up just getting missed before the market completely went to the upside. But anyway, those are things that we end up facing in trading. We can't really end up being or taking anything personal. So fortunately that happened. It was a real shame. Second day in a row, because I know the day before New Zealand, The New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar also did end up leaving me in a similar fashion. But we'll try and see whether today we can end up tightening our game. So for this one for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So let's see what happens within those three areas right there. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. Right now, the market is giving some sort of a pullback. We're back within some sort of a buyer's region, which is good. Definitely after the market broke above this region to the upside, came back in. You can't see that it's come back in for some sort of a retest within here. The way the sellers are coming down is good. It's not very aggressive. It's what we want to see. So we just need to see a slowdown of these sellers within this region. Maybe the market might even end up attempting to tap these weeks within here, but generally the buyers can end up maybe coming back in. Even if the market does end up tapping there, the buyers do end up showing up and the sellers really struggle, within this region, then there's a possibility you could find that the market could lift to the upside. There's a high probability you could find that the buyers who pushed the market to the upside quite aggressively might end up coming back in to possibly challenge their previous high, which is somewhere within these regions here, or maybe even higher, all the way to within there. So in case that does end up happening, and we get a sign of the big buyers showing up within here, then I'll definitely know that it's the same buyers who pushed the market to the upside who are going to be back. And if that ends up happening, then I'll definitely be trying to see whether I can end up having another attempt at this one. So watch out for that. Also watch out for this scenario at the bottom right there. In case the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. This one we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market had just broken above this area to the upside, and you can see that the market just held within there, but continued to move up higher. It's only during the US session that the buyers really picked up a lot of steam. But within this region, unless you're reading it on a smaller time frame, could have been a bit tough. But nonetheless, you can see that the market continued to grind up higher. During the Asian session, the market is on the pullback phase. So let's see what happens. Also on this one, you can see that it's back within some sort of a buyer's region within that area. Although this one, the sellers look like they've come in with a bit more aggression. But let's see what happens. You can possibly end up getting a slowdown. The way the sellers have come down, there's a possibility they might attempt to break this area to the downside. So what I would do is let's wait and see what happens. If the buyers do end up really showing up, because the buyers have reacted off there before, and we get the market really holding within there, then I'll definitely be looking to see whether I can get some buys here. And also watching out for the correlation. We've seen that the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar has come back in within a buyer's region. This one, similar situation. So you could find that maybe using correlation, you could find that when the big boys start to show up, just looking at the others, then I think we could possibly be getting ready or getting closer to the timing of when we should actually be jumping in on the trade. So for this one, watch out for those ones. But of course, also remember to watch out for the times. If you end up picking the trades in between the times, there's a possibility you could have to end up waiting a bit of a waiting game. As the market waits for the next set of big boys to come in, to possibly end up pushing the market to the upside. So just make sure that you try to get your trades as close as possible within the time, so that at least you don't have to end up waiting for too long. Sometimes that patience ends up becoming a problem because you actually think that the trade is actually not going to work. But it's not that the trade is not going to work. It's because you jumped in on it too early before the session is actually closer to getting open. So you jump out of the trade because you're even mentally tired of the trade, only to find out that the trade actually works out, when the market opening time comes. So try and get your trades as close as possible within those times. So moving on into the next one. This is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, also a currency pair we had yesterday, watching out to see whether we could get sells. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. The market came back in somewhere as close as possible within there. There was an SNR within here. Unfortunately, the market couldn't tap in within this area. I was really expecting to see it tap there, possibly end up getting the sells. The market turned around. I guess these sellers were in control. You can see how they had pushed the market the previous day quite aggressively, and they pushed the market all the way back in, all the way till the bottom right here. So you can see that the market side to push to the downside during the London session, during the US session. The one that many pullbacks, would have expected maybe when the market started to come to the downside here, maybe there would have been an attempt of the buyers to push the market to the upside slightly, somewhere even within this region right here. And I was really waiting to see that happen. Unfortunately, there was none of that. The market broke to the downside and just continued to rally down. So sometimes you can know the direction that the market is going to take and you can see it, but getting in and getting a proper entry is a completely different story. And for this one, was just the case yesterday. Getting in on the trade was a bit difficult. But today we do have the pullback coming in. And that's the reason why you should always wait. Even if you miss out on an opportunity, there'll always be another one. So you can see right now the market is pulling back in. A nice proper, retest that's coming back in within here and a pullback that you can read. You can see that the bars are pushing up inch by inch, which is okay. Let's see what happens within this area. We can get a slowdown, the bars within this area right here, and we possibly end up getting a sign of the sellers now starting to come back in. And maybe, even if the market does attempt to go to the upside, come back in and actually hold within here. Then, of course, watching out for the times, closer to the market opening times. If, let's say, for example, the whole rollover phase takes place, during the London session, and just watching out for 334, you could possibly end up finding the markets possibly starting to move, within those times. So let's watch out for that. But also remember the pullback can also come back in all the way till the top. It's very possible. If it does, then at least we will also be ready for that. So the second last currency pair, this is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list. We're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. You can see the pullback coming in, something that we've seen with the rest of the cards, which is good. Shows that correlation is in place. When the big boys do end up showing up, hopefully they can end up showing up on all of them. If that does end up being the case, then that is going to be spectacular. So do watch out for this one. The pullback is coming in nice and easy, which is good. We don't like those aggressive pullbacks that come in. The market broke above this region to the upside. This could be the richest of it. When that does end up happening and the market does actually end up coming back in within here, we get a sign of the big buyers showing up, then at least we will possibly try and see whether we could get some proper buying opportunities within this area. So do watch out for that. Also watch out for this region right here. There's a high probability price can also come back in within this area right here. If the price within here is not good enough, then we'll be watching out for that price just slightly lower than that. And of course, that's going to be the last area where we'll be trying to see whether we can get our aggressive buying opportunities. So last but not least, we do have the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. You can see that the pullback is also happening on this one, just like we saw on the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So definitely something that's across the board on the cards. So this one should be coming back in and hopefully should be coming back in within this region right here. You can see that the pullback is coming in slowly, which is good. Definitely something we want to see. So hopefully within this area, we can end up getting a sign of the sellers showing up and the buyers completely out of the game. If that happens, then we will definitely be looking for sells to come down to within this region right here. But also watch out for the region at the top. There's a possibility price could still end up coming back in within there. If it does, then at least we'll be trying to see whether we can get sales there. You can see that when the market broke beneath this region to the downside, because this is a major level, it's something that's more visible, especially on the bigger scale of things, on the bigger story, then you could find that if the market comes back in within this region, then at least we can also end up looking for sales within there. But I think if the market breaks above here, then there will be a breach of structure, because you can see that the market is coming down. If it breaks above here and holds above here, there's a possibility it could start to make higher highs and higher lows. So at that point in time, if you end up looking for sales, I think you're going the wrong way. There's really no point of fighting with the charts. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. So we've mixed and matched up the sells versus the buys. For the guys who came in late, feel free to take a screenshot of that. So I guess we can move on to the indices and the commodities, which are going to be the last things we're going to be looking at, as always. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. For this one, yesterday the bias was to look for buying opportunities. So is the case today. Seems like it's quite stuck within this particular region right here. In the morning yesterday, when we were looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that it wasn't really good to look for the buying opportunities when the market was high up within here. You never really know how the sellers are going to react. And you can see that they did actually end up reacting off that region twice. Even the buyers attempted to come up high, within that area right then. You can see how the sellers really reacted off that region to the downside quite aggressively, and the market is now stuck within this region right here. So it's more or less the same areas as yesterday. So there wasn't much in terms of a move. You can see that the markets didn't really go far and beyond the regions that we had pointed out yesterday. So let's see if we can possibly end up getting some proper buying opportunities today. Fortunately, we couldn't get any yesterday. I mean, even if you did get the buys here, you can really see how the buyers really struggled within this region right here. So there's a possibility the buyers will need to regroup. So what I'm thinking could possibly happen is the market might end up coming back in within here, maybe even looking for much better prices than that. If the buyers do end up reacting quite aggressively and push the market to the upside, then you could find that maybe that's even what the market might actually end up needing, to break even above this region to the upside. So I'll definitely be watching out to see what happens within this region here. So I will set an alert there. I don't know which price they might need. What I know is that prices will definitely be needed much better than this. How much better, I don't know. You could even find the market even coming back in within this region right here. So let's just wait and see. But definitely looking for the buys now, there's a real struggle. Don't really jump in on the buy now. You'll just end up being taken for a roller coaster ride. It's not really worth signing up for that. So just wait. So the next one, this is the Dow Jones. So for this one, yesterday, also watching out for buyers. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region. It had just broken to the upside. But like we always point out, wait for the breach and the pullback and the hold. You can imagine all the guys who are hitting buys within here and are thinking that that trade was really going to work out really well for them. I don't think they really envisioned that the market was really going to move this far much against them. And you can see that the market came back in. And that's the reason why it's always important to always wait for the breach and the hold. So you can see that the market probed within that region and the hold actually happened to the downside of this region. And you can see that the market held within there. At 3, the market came to the downside. And you can see that the market tapped back in within this region. After it had broken to the upside, I knew that the market was possibly going to come back in within this area for some sort of a retest. And you can see that the market really tapped within that area, came up, and you can see that eventually did end up getting all the way back in within this region right here. So for this one, for today, the levels are the same. It's not really gone far and beyond. So we will be waiting to see what happens. If the market can actually break above that yellow SNR at the top of the conservative region, on the pullback, then we could look for the buying opportunities. If not, then we'll possibly have to end up waiting to see if we can get the market coming back in within here, maybe looking for some better prices within here. Could even find the market maybe even just tapping back in within this area and maybe give it another go in terms of the buys. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Also watch out for the times that we always do keep on pointing out. Most probably you will find that the indices and the commodities do end up having a large tendency of moving, especially during the US session. Of course, they're pegged on the USD, so it's not something uncommon. And remember that we're also fully technical on them. And as much as the fundamentals can end up playing a part, but ideally we're more or less following the story of what's going on with on the technical aspect. So moving on into the next one, this is silver. So for silver, yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the 3 areas that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within this region here, and the market did break to the upside, continued moving to the upside. Unfortunately, we couldn't get some proper pullbacks. Of course, we'd have expected price to come back in within here, and it did. Although the way the sellers came back down within here was a bit aggressive, looking at that. And you can see that the buyers have really struggled to contain the sellers within this region right here, based on how they came back in. But generally, they're still holding within that. So you could find that during the London session, you could find that the market could possibly end up lifting off this region to the upside. You could find the market coming back in within this region right here. There's a possibility it could do that. Remember that generally we're watching out for buys for as long as we're holding above the red SNR to the upside. But also watch out for this region right here. There's a level right here that you could find that the market could possibly end up giving you issues on your way up. When you end up looking at the mini scale of things, what you can end up seeing is that in as much as the sellers came down aggressive, the sellers have really slowed down within here. You can see that maybe this could be a sign of a big buyer showing up. And for that reason, I'm thinking maybe you could find that if the market does end up coming back in within here, there's a possibility you could find the buys lifting off this area. So I will set an alert there to wait and see what happens. If the market comes back in within here, you could take a buy. possibly targeting higher up within there. Looking for buys somewhere within here might give you issues because this region might give you, some sort of issues. At least if you get the buys closer within this region right here, even if you have your stops here and the market does end up coming back in within this area, even if you end up getting issues there, at that point in time, even if, I end up closing the trade, the risk to reward might actually end up being worth it, better than actually looking for the trades higher up within here. For this level right here, why it's there, especially for the guys who've done the one-on-one, I'm sure just looking at the situation, you can definitely see why that region should be an area that you should definitely be watching out for. So if you know, you know. So just make sure that you watch out for that. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now for gold yesterday, the buyers was to try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities as well. And you can see the three areas right here that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative. Here in the morning, when you're looking at the charts yesterday, price was somewhere within this region right here. And I did point out that if the market did break to the upside, then we could look for the buys on the pullback. There was also this region that we're expecting to possibly see the market possibly tap back in within. Unfortunately, the market just couldn't get all the way to within this area right here. The market went to the upside, came back in. You can see how aggressive the sellers did end up coming in, and the buyers have really struggled to contain them. But of course, this is what we were expecting. When the market broke to the upside, some sort of a pullback retest of this area, and the market has continued to go up. But of course, we don't chase, so don't really end up trying to chase the trades or the buys. Just wait and see if you could possibly end up getting the market coming back in within here. There's a possibility it could, especially based on how the sellers came down and how the buyers have retaliated. These are not really the big buyers. You can see that they're really struggling. If you compare how, even just off this area right here, how the buyers went up the first time and how they are still going off this region the second time, it shows you that, and it tells you that these guys are really struggling. So there's a possibility you still could find the market back in within here. Maybe the buyers need to regroup, they need to call themselves to a meeting, waitani hapo nyuma ya hema, figure out what's going on, put their stuff together, then after that, maybe they end up having another go at it. So there's a possibility you could find that the market could come back in within here. Don't really look for the buys too close within here. There's still a possibility you could find that the market could actually end up reacting off this area right here. And I mean, if you end up looking for the buys there, you might end up putting yourself in a situation. So, you never really know what these sellers could actually end up doing. They could easily end up pushing the market to the downside, and you could just find the market back in within here, maybe at around 4:30. So you just need to wait. But also, if they do end up getting strength and they do push the market to the upside, well, you could end up looking for some buying opportunities, but maybe not on the 15-minute time frame, maybe on the 3-1, maybe some scalp sort of trades, going up. But generally, you can end up breaking this region to the upside, and we end up getting a pullback and a hold above that region. Then at that point in time, we possibly could end up trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities within this area to continue moving up higher. But in terms of SNRs, especially past this region to the upside, we don't know where you could end up targeting. Remember, gold has never been this high, ever. And right now, the price that you're seeing here is the price per ounce. In fact, we were discussing this with the team early in the morning. The price that you normally see here, the $2,500, is the price per ounce of gold. So price has never been there. Above gold right now is going for $1 million. Above gold normally has about 400 ounce, which is about 12 kilograms. And that gold is going for, around $1 million right now. So you can imagine, history is in the making. So even just discussing and saying, even the guys who won the Olympic gold medals in the Olympics that just recently ended, if only they were getting real gold like they used to back in the 1900s. And those guys landed at the airport, those things would have already disappeared from their necks, based on, the prices of gold and the way things are going. But anyway, let's just see how things do end up going. So that's pretty much it in terms of everything. Hopefully, guys have taken note of everything we've discussed today. So I guess we can end up looking at the Q&A to see what guys are saying. So I see Alan Ronald there. Good to see you. And of course, thanks for your screenshot. Hope you got the 2 cents that we gave you, and you're saying thanks a lot. Karibu sana. I see Robert Muriuki there. So you're saying, when looking to determine the current trend, which time frame do we look at? Daily and H4 only? And how do we really go about it? If you're going to be trading the 15, you see, like for us guys, the 15 minute is what we trade. The reason why we trade the 15 is because we can see more detail. not too much detail that it will end up confusing you, because if you end up going now to the 3 minute and the 1 minute, remember there things are constantly just shifting all over the place. So the reason why we go to the 15 is because we're getting a moderate amount of information. We can see what happened yesterday, because you can see these two dotted lines within here. We can generally see what happened yesterday and be able to project what could potentially end up happening today. But in as much as we're looking at the 15 minutes, we're deriving the story from the 1 hour time frame. But you see now, if you end up looking at the 1 hour time frame in terms of trades, also getting the setups might also end up being or taking a bit too long. So we derive the structure and the story from the 1 hour time frame. So you can generally see that this one is going up. So even for the guys who love using or drawing chart patterns, you can generally see that this one, to some extent, the market is in some sort of an upward channel, some sort of an upward trend to some extent, you know. So we know that based off the higher time frame, and we have that in mind. So even when we end up going down to the smaller time frame, the 15-minute time frame, what we're looking for is the detail within these areas that we have, the SNRs. But we already have an overview or a bird's eye view of what's generally happening on the bigger time frame. So if you're going to be swinging, let's say, for example, if you're going to be looking at the 4 hour time frame, then that means that you should be trading the 1 hour time frame, because you're going to be seeing more detail of that. If you're going to be trading the 4 hour time frame and really doing some proper and extensive swing trading, then that means that you should be deriving your trends and everything from the daily, so that at least you know exactly where you are in the whole scale and the whole story of things. So for us, it's the 15 and the 1 hour. But we don't generally need to come to the 1 hour when we're doing the analysis, because you can see that even if we end up going to the 1 hour, we're going to be missing out on a lot of detail of what's going to be happening, and you could easily end up missing out on a trade. So that's the reason why we go down to the 15-minute time frame. So I hope that makes sense for you, Robert Muriuki. So I see Patricia Mwangi there. You're asking about GBP USD. So for this one, we're watching out to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. So I've set an alert here as well, waiting to see whether can end up getting the market coming back in as close as possible within here. If we get a slowdown of the sellers and the buyers really now start to show up within that area, then at that point in time, I'll definitely be looking to see whether I could get some buying opportunities on this one. So I hope that sorts you out. So I'm not seeing any more questions, which is okay. So I guess everything else is perfectly clear, which is okay with me. So hopefully you guys do end up having a wonderful day on the charts. Remember, if you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us, whether good or bad. Feel free to use us as a resource. We may not be here forever, but at least for the time that we're here, make sure that you do end up making good use of us and good use of the advice that we do actually end up giving you. So also remember, the AMP class is open for September. So if you guys want to sign up, feel free to do so. I think there should be a link in the chat box that's possibly already been put there. If not, then maybe the team can put it there. So you can sign up for that. And of course, we'll try and see how much more value we can end up giving you, of course, when you do end up coming through for the AMP class. So I guess that's pretty much it. Seeing Caroline, you're asking news for the day on the calendar. Yep. So for today, there isn't that much that's going to be happening. There's already been some news events that have already happened for the yen. So we'll see how they do end up playing out. It's only one Euro news event that's going to be coming out at around 12:30 or thereabout. And of course, the Canadian dollar news that are going to be coming out at 3:30. And that's pretty much it for today. So not really that much. It doesn't mean that the charts are not going to be moving, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But it's not really that much in terms of the fundamental front compared to tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day. So we'll see how things end up going. You can also see that we do have the Jackson Hole Symposium that's going to be starting off tomorrow. So it's normally a 3-day workshop or conference. So you can see it right there, even on Saturday as well. So it's like a 3-day workshop. Sometimes there's a lot of volatility that normally comes in. Jackson Hole is a place in Wyoming in the US. So the symposium, symposium is just fancy name of just calling it a conference or a convention. So it's just basically all the central bankers, the finance managers, academics, financial market participants from all across the world. They do actually end up meeting and they discuss very many things, finances, interest rates and whatnot. So it's just speeches. It's not anything quantitative, but it does bring in a lot of volatility sometimes. So also just make sure that you're ready for that. But at least that's going to be starting off tomorrow. So on the fundamental front, that's what you should expect, at least for the next 2 days. But today, quite a quiet day, but it doesn't mean that we can't get some moves on the charts. So thanks for that, Caroline, and I hope that information helps a lot of guys. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. And as always, may the peeps be with you. God bless, and bye for now. Trading.